It's a process. They, meaning Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, Christo-fascists, the Republicans, the alt-right conservative movement in America, however you want to lump all those folks in, who are currently making America a terrible place to be, who are currently trying to enact their fascist takeover of the US. Those folks, they didn't get the White House overnight. We aren't going to get it back overnight. Thank you, Brianne, for saying this. I understand that people want a quick solution. I understand that we live in a culture of instant gratification where people want what they want when they want it. We're not used to having to invest long-term in things. We're not used to having very much patience. We're not used to having long suffering. In fact, one of my first really big viral videos on YouTube came not that long after the inauguration, where I said that I don't think most Americans have conceptualized of how much it's going to take to stop this. That most Americans are unprepared for the level of commitment and sacrifice that stopping the Trump regime is going to require of all of us. And I wasn't trying to be discouraging in that video. I was just trying to encourage folks to readjust their expectations, right? To get a realistic view of what was going to be asked of all of us, and to not go into this very naively thinking we show up to one protest and Trump steps down from office. Or alternatively, that we do absolutely nothing and somehow it will all get undone in the midterms. Both of those things are incredibly naive, and they require really very minimal effort on the part of the American people. But if we study nonviolent resistance movements, we know that they frequently take years, sometimes a decade. Look at the Polish Solidarity movement. I know that doesn't feel good to hear that this is not going to be over quickly, but it's simply not. Part of the reason for that is because the Christo-fascists have been plotting since the 1980s for this. The Heritage Foundation has been working for decades. They have been infiltrating school boards, election offices. They've been putting their people in local offices and positions all over the country. They've been strategically bringing lawsuits in front of judges that are very friendly to their agenda for a long time. That's one of many reasons I'm a big fan of Mark Elias, because he's been trying to bring attention to that fact and also to fight those guys in the courts on a state level all over the country. They didn't gain the White House overnight is something that we need to keep reminding ourselves. This didn't happen overnight. This is a long time coming. This is a systemic problem that we all turned a blind eye to. This was building. A lot of experts on authoritarianism had been warning us. And so many people foolishly thought when Joe Biden got elected, whew, dodged a bullet there, it's all over. But the conditions that created the Christo-fascists and the conditions that got Trump elected the first time around, those didn't stop, and January 6th should have been a big indicator of that. Not only that, but Project 2025 was being written, and we should have all been aware of what was in it and taken it more seriously. I mean, some of us did take it pretty seriously, and a lot of people, including a lot of neoliberals, very moderate folks, were that's fear mongering. That's not going to happen. But if you can look back, and again, hindsight is 2020, you can see how the Christo-fascists were creating a pathway to get them right to where we are today. Not only that, but you can see how the oligarchs in this country have spent decades consolidating their power, building their wealth, creating policies and tax schedules that were beneficial to them. They were working actively for things like Citizens United. They were working to elect people and lobby Congress and push through bills and policies and push through cases in the courts that benefited the super rich and help them start to accumulate and hoard wealth, more and more wealth, and avoid paying their fair share of taxes and continue to exploit the working class harder and harder. And then, of course, I'm no political scientist, but I'm a working class person, and you could feel the resentment building amongst the working class, right? The American dream felt less and less accessible to every single one of us. We felt our quality of life was not improving. We felt that things were getting more expensive, that we did not have as much opportunity to advance. We didn't have as much opportunity for rest and relaxation and enjoying our lives as our parents did. The American dream began to feel really elusive to us because we were getting squeezed harder and harder by the super rich because the wealth gap was growing. And so there was this growing discontent and this reduced quality of life for working class Americans. Man, that was ripe pickings for the alt-right. Right, so we had working class Americans who were maybe a little bit more conservative, they were more religious, and statistically less well educated, hardworking, blue-collar folks We're seeing the American dream slip through their fingers, who were feeling lied to by the government, who was telling them that things were fine. And they're like, okay, but my lived experience does not equate to what you're saying. The discontent of those folks was ripe for the picking by MAGA, was ripe for the picking by the alt-right, the Christo-fascists. All of those alt-right groups did a really good job of feeding the anger, feeding the discontent, and then providing scapegoats. And I would argue the super rich up here, they leveraged that to their advantage, right? They don't want us to have class solidarity. They don't want us to gain class consciousness and realize who it is that's fucking all the rest of us, who it is that is making the wealth gap grow, who it is that is hoarding these vast quantities of resources and making our quality of life actively worse. They don't want us to notice that. They want us fighting amongst ourselves. So it benefits them to feed racism and homophobia, to scapegoat people of different religions, scapegoat immigrants, create an urban versus rural, red versus blue divide. That benefits these guys up here, and it keeps us distracted so that we don't gain class consciousness and we don't actually work to rein in, constrain, tax the folks who are making our lives worse. Instead, we have bitter infighting, and they just fuck us harder and harder, and they put somebody like Trump in charge. They put somebody like Mike Johnson and the Christo-fascists in charge, who are going to give them giant tax breaks to the tune of $4.3 trillion, while they take away the services that the American people rely on that benefit us. They're just going to enhance our suffering more and more, and they don't give a shit because they just want to get richer and richer. All of that dynamic was something that the alt-right fed off of, and primed this population down here to vote for them and to lead us down the path to fascism. And also created this weird culture of like, you're a temporarily embarrassed millionaire or billionaire. Like, you should all simp for Elon Musk. Like, maybe you could be like us one day if you serve us and you work for us. They really preached these lies of bootstraps ideology and then also trickle down economics. Again, both complete and total lies. They really fed that to this population down here. Yeah, you're not doing well. Your quality of life is not so great, but maybe one day you could be like us. Maybe one day you could be secure and happy and have the things you want and have the quality of life that you want. Just keep working harder at your factory job, and maybe one day you'll be a billionaire like me. Reasons that really kind of escape me, that lie was very appealing to a large number of people. I will never understand why anybody thought that Donald Trump was a populist, that he cared about working class people, that he cared about blue collar America at all. But that's something that they heavily bought into. So we have this long path to get us to the place we are now. And when I see people being like, where's the general strike right now? Well, what work have you done to lay the foundation, to draw in enough people to the resistance movement, to build bail funds and create strike funds and lay all of the groundwork so that when we call for a strike, it will be successful? What have you done to contribute to that? You say, I saw this one-off event and it didn't stop Donald Trump, and so now we all need to give up. I'm like, how much have you bothered to learn about how we got to where we are now? And how much have you bothered to learn from other resistance movements around the world? We need to have realistic expectations of what this is going to take, how long it is going to take, what sacrifices we are going to have to make. And I'm sorry, again, like, we live in a culture of instant gratification. We live in a culture where people don't really want to have to sacrifice very much. We have very little distress tolerance. We do not like to feel uncomfortable in American culture. We want all of our information spoon-fed to us on TikTok in less than 90 seconds. We want to charge everything on a credit card. And even if we can't afford something, we want to buy it and bring it home with us right now. We don't want to do layaway. My kids didn't even know what layaway was. I had to explain it to them. And so we need a massive shift in our expectations. We need to learn how to plan. We need to learn how to engage in and bear long suffering. We need to learn how to play the long game and be patient, to be strategic, and take the time to build the resistance movement that will be successful. The alt-right, they were very patient. They were willing to take decades to get us here. It's not going to take decades to get us out of this, but it's also not going to happen overnight. The more involved everybody is and the more people we draw into the movement, the quicker we get to a place where we can stop this nightmare and start building the kind of America that serves the working class, where we're no longer being exploited by the super wealthy, where a good quality of life is accessible to all of us, where we all don't have to struggle so hard. That future is absolutely possible, but it's going to require a significant amount of planning and sacrifice to get there, and it won't happen instantly.